I'm divorcing you. I want to live with mom and dad. Get out, you leeching homemaker.
A heated argument had crossed a line with the husband's words. I handed him the prepared divorce papers, making him sign the documents the lawyer had prepared. My husband and in-laws were thrilled about the divorce, but they didn't know yet. They didn't know that an unimaginable hell was awaiting them. My name is Emily, and I'm 30 years old. I'm a homemaker. I have been married to Mason for 5 years, and our only daughter, Lily, is almost 4. On the surface, we seem like a happy family, but there was one problem I couldn't share with anyone. We lived with my husband's parents, and it had become a massive burden for me. It all started right after we got married. Mason was supposed to move to my apartment after our wedding, but suddenly he proposed something unexpected.
Hey, Emily, about after we get married?
The registration is next month and it's coming soon. What's going on?
Well, I've been thinking about this. How about we live with my parents after we get married?
What? Live together? I was speechless at the sudden proposition. Seeing my reaction, my husband hastily added,
Oh, I don't mean forever. We'll want our home someday and we'll need a car when we have children. So I want to save money for that time.
I understand wanting to save money, but do we have to live together?
My parents said we could live there for free. They're getting old and they said it would be comforting to have us around.
I appreciate their kindness, but
I'm serious about saving money for our future, Emily. So I want to save on rent until we have kids. Please, I beg you.
My husband repeatedly pleaded, leaving me in a difficult position. It was hard to refuse when we cited saving for our future as the reason for living together. And this arrangement was only to last until we had children. My husband's salary isn't all that high. That's why I can understand my husband's argument that we should live with my parents and save on living expenses by saving money. Eventually, I gave in, and reluctantly we decided to live with my in-laws. For the first few months, living together wasn't a problem. We both saved part of our income in a joint account and everything was going smoothly. Then, my pregnancy was confirmed. When I reported it to my husband, the news immediately reached my in-laws as well. That's probably when my nightmare began. After becoming pregnant with his child, my mother-in-law started to become more and more harsh. Upon getting pregnant, I switched to working from home, and my mother-in-law said to me in a stern tone,
Emily, what are you doing at home while my son is out working?
I'm working too?
Huh? What kind of work? You're just playing around on the computer.
No, this is my job. I switched to something I can do at home because of my morning sickness. But no matter how I explained, mother-in-law just shook her head and sighed.
My goodness, what an awful daughter-in-law. You're just trying to deceive us, aren't you? Morning sickness is nothing. Lying to get out of work is despicable.
Wait a minute. I really just switched to working from home.
Quiet. Don't talk back to me. You're just a daughter-in-law. If you're just going to play on the computer, at least take care of the house.
And so, my days of being forced to do housework without acknowledgement of my work from home continued. Morning sickness can vary day to day. Some days, life goes on as normal, but others, it's so agonizing I can't even get up. No matter how much I tried to explain, mother-in-law wouldn't budge. In fact, every time I opened my mouth, she would scream,
It's a lie. It's an excuse.
And wouldn't believe a word I said. And to think mother-in-law herself went through the pain of childbirth with her son Mason. As for my father-in-law, he's always been a man of few words. He's quiet, but he never intervenes between mother-in-law and me and is firmly on mother-in-law's side. All the while, I'm being lectured by mother-in-law. He has this creepy grin on his face. I've sometimes thought it would be better to go to the office instead. But the trauma of feeling sick while outside made it impossible for my body to endure commuting during pregnancy. However, if I kept being harassed by my in-laws every day, the stress would build up. I decided to talk to my husband about it. Mason, I hate to bring this up all of a sudden, but can we stop living with your parents?
What?
My husband looked at me bewildered and asked, What's wrong all of a sudden? I don't want to say this, but living with your parents, it's reached its limit for me.
What do you mean limit? Did something happen?
Well, every day when you're not around, I've been harassed.
Harassed?
I told my husband everything from mother-in-law's snide remarks to my father-in-law's cold attitude. Tears welled up as I spoke, and though I was choked up, I firmly conveyed how unbearable my life had become. Mason will surely respect my feelings above all. Our monthly savings might decrease a bit, but he will definitely understand. But what came out of my husband's mouth were words I could never have imagined.
Hey, isn't this Emily's fault?
What?
No, I mean, if mom and dad are behaving like that, it must be for a serious reason. You get scolded like that because you don't do what mom says, right?
I never thought I would be blamed, and I was bewildered. Wait, just wait a minute. I told you, Mason, didn't I? I have switched to working from home. But that doesn't mean I'm not working at all. It's impossible to take on all the housework during work hours.
Do you want to say that mom and dad are wrong? We're living here for free, just listen a little.
Dad and Mom.
Oh, anyway, this is Emily's fault. Don't trouble my precious parents any further.
My husband ended the conversation unilaterally and left the room. Dad and Mom, how old are you? I explained everything. So why do you only defend your parents and not me? If I knew it would come to this, I would never have agreed to live together in the first place. But I don't have the courage to leave this house now. I'm about to give birth. If I become alone now, I can see that life will be hard. That thought held me back, and I couldn't bring myself to divorce. Time passed, and I safely gave birth to my daughter. I think I endured well, all things considered, against the harassment of my in-laws and my husband's incomprehension. I wanted to divorce as soon as possible, but I couldn't because my husband and in-laws loved our daughter so much, and I couldn't bear to take her family away from her. Spending the day with my in-laws was painful, so I wanted to return to work right after parental leave, but the company's policy changed, and I had to settle for working from home. Today, as I was preparing dinner while my mother-in-law complained, my husband came home with a big smile on his face.
I'm home. Man, I'm tired.
Welcome back, I called out, and my husband ran to me flashing some documents. What's this?
You won't believe it. I bought a high-rise condo today.
What? A high-rise condo? You bought it? You're joking, right?
It's not a joke. My parents and I have been talking about living in a high-rise condo for a while now. Man, my dream has finally come true.
What? What are you talking about? Ignoring my confusion, my in-laws were cheering and saying well done to my husband. I was so taken aback that I hurriedly questioned my husband. Wait a minute, you're lying about the high-rise condo, right?
Why would I lie? It's great. From now on, we'll be living in a high-rise condo. We're joining the upper class.
Don't be ridiculous. I didn't hear anything about it, and we can't possibly live in a high-rise condo.
But we can't live in one. I had an acquaintance push through the review for us under the condition of paying double the deposit.
What? What is this man suddenly talking about? I hadn't heard anything about living in a high-rise condo and doubling the deposit. Where would we get that kind of money? In my shock, I was at a loss for words, and my husband began to look down on me and snap at me.
Do you have a problem with me or something? After all, I humbled myself to get our application approved.
It's not that I'm complaining, but I'm shocked that you didn't consult me. Why aren't you saying anything to me? What about our plans to save for a home and car?
If I had told you, you would have just objected, right?
What?
I had planned to live with my parents after we got married from the start, and I never, ever intended to move out.
What? What do you mean? Then what about saving money?
I just made something that sounded good. All I ever wanted was to live with mom and dad. That's all.
My husband deceived me? I never knew he could have such a scheme. Anger began to bubble up inside me, and my voice grew harsher. What's that about? Don't be ridiculous. You prioritize living with your parents over our married life?
What's wrong with that? I only married you for appearances. You just mess around at home saying you're working remotely. A failure of a wife like you should just keep quiet and do as you're told.
Stop it. Enough. I can't bear it anymore. I didn't think you were like this.
That's my line. I want a divorce, you homemaker parasite.
Calling me a parasite? That's harsh.
But it's the truth, isn't it? I don't need a failure like you. I'll live in a high-rise apartment with mom and dad, and you're just in the way. I'll give you custody, but leave right away.
Don't you find your own daughter cute?
I'll tell you now, she's not cute because she looks like you. I was just pretending to dote on her. What Mom and Dad really wanted was a boy, not a girl.
Being insulted about my daughter too? The fuse inside me finally blew. I understand. If you say so, I will leave. But I need a week because of Lily.
Alright, you will leave without fail after a week, right?
Thus, my preparations for revenge began. The next day, I headed to a law firm to have a pledge prepared that stated no contact after divorce. The deadline of a week was short, but I did everything possible towards the divorce. A week later, I handed over the prepared divorce papers and had him sign the documents the lawyer created. As I left with my daughter clutching our belongings, my husband and in-laws sneered and said,
You're finally leaving? We're moving to a high-rise apartment soon and it's going to be amazing. We can sell this house and use it for the new home's mortgage. 2 birds with 1 stone, right, Mom?
Absolutely. Living with just Mason and Dad, I'm so happy.
As my daughter and I left my in-laws' home, I silently smiled to myself in my heart. They should enjoy themselves while they can. They'll have to face reality soon enough, right? A few months later, as expected, a call came from my husband.
Emily, please help me.
What happened?
Stop the weird jokes. Please come back right now. If things continue like this, we'll be kicked out of the high-rise apartment.
I thought it might be something like that.
What?
Yes, I knew it. I knew that my husband and his family would end up like this. You couldn't pay the loan, could you?
How did you know that?
Come on, it was obvious. Your salary isn't that high. At first, you managed to pay it off with the money from selling your family home, but now you can't. And you panicked and called me. That's it, right?
If you know, then help us. Our joint account has less money than I thought. There should have been several $100,000 in there.
Of course, when we divorced, I withdrew exactly half the money.
What?
My husband seemed unaware, but during that 1 week when I was preparing for the divorce, I had withdrawn half the money from our joint account and transferred it to my own account. It seems he was relying on that money. Without confirming, he now faced the reality.
Oh, wait. Taking it out on your own is unfair, isn't it?
Unfair? How so? That money was something we both saved a fixed amount into after we got married. What's wrong with me taking half as property division? It's a valid reason. Besides, you've always treated me like a parasite since I worked from home, right?
Don't joke around. My parents' savings are almost nothing, and we didn't get much for selling the family home. I was planning to use the money from our joint account for the loan payment. Give it back. That money is mine.
Don't joke around. Those are my words. I yelled back at my husband over the phone in a low voice. This is what happens when you sign contracts for things you can't afford. You got what you deserved.
What?
Just so you know, since you signed that affidavit, you owe me compensation if you involve me in anything. Should I claim it right now? Then my husband pleaded, tears in his eyes.
Give me a break.
Annoying, isn't it? Then live peacefully with your beloved dad and mom, the family you love so much. I finally found happiness by getting away from thrash like you. Stay away from me and my daughter forever. In a huff, I hung up the phone and deleted my husband's contact information. I hadn't given my new address, so we likely wouldn't meet again. From what I had heard, my husband and in-laws quickly fell behind on their loan payments and were soon evicted from their high-rise apartment. When they sold the new house to pay off the debts, only the debt remained. Since their family home was already sold, the 3 of them were now living in a cramped apartment. With only Mason's salary, they couldn't afford decent meals and seemed to be wasting away day by day. Rather, it seemed like a fitting punishment. On the other hand, I had rented a new house near my workplace and was enjoying peaceful days with my daughter. Work was going well and I had even been promoted recently. I was able to save a decent amount of money for my daughter. Lily, I'm sorry. Are you lonely, just you and mom? I asked my daughter on the way to the childcare center.
Lily, I hated Daddy when he was mean to Mommy. I hated Grandma and Grandpa too. What? Lily loves Mommy. As long as Mommy is here, it's okay. Oh, Lily. Mommy, stay with me forever.
With those words, my daughter tightly grasped my hand. The bitterness and resentment that had been lingering in my heart slowly started to unravel. I will make this child happy, no matter what, I vowed to myself, squeezing my daughter's little hand in return.